Thank you for your patience and welcome back to EFL's Green Conversations. Or if it's your first time here attending, it is great to have you here. Today marks the 5th Green Conversations, proudly hosted by the Environmental Foundation Limited in partnership with our main sponsor, Nations Trust Bank. EFL is a pioneer public interest litigation organization that was established in 1981. Our mission is to conserve and protect the natural environment of Sri Lanka through legal and scientific means. Over the years, EFL has litigated over 200 court cases, which have been supplemented by thorough investigations as well as substantial research. Green Conversations is a series of events which aim at bringing various stakeholders from various walks of life to one platform to promote advocacy and dialogue and to enable a platform to discuss environmental issues. EFL aligns its topic for this event with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And the topic today, which is marine conservation, is in alignment with 14 Sustainable Development Goals to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources. We have a very interesting lineup of speakers for you this evening who will be discussing topics on marine pollution and government involvement in conservation of our oceans, sustainable fisheries, and tourism in conserving marine ecosystems, and much more. We would like to have an interactive discussion with you during the Q&A session where you can ask the questions to our speakers. For now, let's move on to our first speaker. Our first speaker this evening is Nishan Pereira. Nishan is co-founder of Blue Resources Trust. He is a marine biologist and an underwater photographer with an interest in coral reef ecology, fisheries, and marine protected area management. He has previously worked with the IUCN and is currently a member of Project Seahorse. His current research includes field studies on seahorses, coral reefs, and sustainable small-scale fisheries. This evening, he will give us an overview into Sri Lanka's marine resources.
All right, thanks. Okay, I have 6 minutes, so I'm going to kind of run through this. It's a bit of a challenge to talk about all of Sri Lanka's marine biodiversity resources, but it's a little teaser into what is really out there for those of you who may not be familiar with it. Obviously, Sri Lanka being an island, we have fairly extensive coastlines, around 1,400 kilometers around the country. And there's a diversity of ecosystems. Before we get into species and biodiversity, you have to focus on ecosystems because that's where the biodiversity is retained. So we have everything ranging from kind of sandy beaches, as you can see in this picture, seagrass beds, estuaries, lagoons, which have extensive mangrove growth, coral reefs, rocky reefs. So a very, very diverse array of marine ecosystems that all are interconnected to each other as well and support a high amount of biodiversity. And this ranges from very small species, from kind of minuscule shrimps and little sea slugs and microscopic organisms, all the way, of course, up to a blue whale or even sharks like the whale shark, but blue whale being the most prominent and probably the best known marine animal in Sri Lanka. So some of the highlights, again, we can discuss this if you guys have questions later on. Some of the highlights being we have 28 species of marine mammals. I'll focus on that because marine mammals tend to capture people's attention. They're very charismatic species. They kind of are a flagship species for marine conservation. But we also have a fairly diverse coral reefs. More than 200 species, I think it's about 212 species, give or take 1 or 2, there's always contention about 1 or 2 species. More than 900 species of coastal marine fish. This ranges from estuarine fish all the way to pelagic fish, which are open ocean fish. And these 900 species, when we say more than 900, again, because we don't have a very accurate count, and this is kind of the case with many countries. But we have more than 60 species of sharks alone. Again, from the fish, probably one of the most important kind of predatory species. And Sri Lanka has a very high diversity of coastal and pelagic sharks. 14 species of sea grasses, 14 doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually quite a lot for seagrasses. It's not a group of plants that you have, 200, 300 species, so it's actually quite diverse for the region. And many of these species, we have groups, we have species of global conservation significance. In the marine ecosystem, you don't have many endemics because you have open borders, unlike land animals. So a lot of species, they have larval stages, or when they're small, they drift in ocean currents. But we do have a few endemics, but we do have species of global conservation significance. So Sri Lanka is very important for many migratory species and for the conservation of many global marine species, starting from marine mammals, whales, dugongs, all the way to large sharks and some of the reef fish as well, and coral as well. But what I told you is a little teaser, or in the sense that it's a tip of the iceberg. So this is what we know. There's so much that we don't know. Now I'm just going to tell you about a short survey done over 9 days at 15 sampling fish landing sites in Sri Lanka last year by some of the team I work with, along with some collaborators from outside. Just in 9 days, they found they were focusing on sharks and rays. 1 new family for Sri Lanka, 10 range extensions, so the first records for Sri Lanka, and 5 species, novel species, which are new to science. So they're not just new to Sri Lanka, they're new to science. So they were previously unknown. So this is just in 9 days. So you can imagine what is out there. I mean, the common thing is that we know so much more about space than we know about the bottom of the ocean. So just in Sri Lanka, because we have had a lot of research, but we still have a lot more to find out and discover. So some of the challenges, which some of the other speakers will talk about in detail. One of the biggest challenges for marine conservation, I feel, is low public engagement. It just does not capture public imagination. Maybe marine mammals, whales and dolphins seem to get, they're cute, cuddly, or maybe somewhat cuddly, they're pretty for people. But fish and other things are emphasis on extractive use, from government policy to public perception. We look at a fish, we want to eat it, When you just think of yourself in a restaurant. When you go, you all like to order a full fish. I mean, I do it as well. You have a full fish. Imagine if a chicken was served to you with the head on. It would be disgusting, it would be barbaric. If you see someone beheading a chicken, it would be really... But we constantly look at fish being gutted and beheaded, and it's fine. So we look at it in a way of fish. So how do you push conservation? This is always a challenge. We will scream and shout and everything about an elephant dying, but we won't say that about a shark. So that is a problem. And then climate change, because one of the challenges with this is there's so many things that we can directly address. Even though we haven't done a good job so far sometimes, we are making steps towards better conservation and management. Climate change is such a big issue that we are going to really struggle to deal with it. Especially for some of the coastal ecosystems, coral reefs are badly affected by coral bleaching, and a lot of the reefs in Sri Lanka and globally have died because of that. But the opportunities for this is that we can focus more on things like tourism and on extractive use, so that we can have income coming from this. And then also focus on ecosystems versus species. We can't single out a species and protect it without looking at the entire ecosystem. Then we'll capture all the species or protect all the species within that. So I'll end with this just to show that everything is connected. So we can't, for example, protect shark without protecting the other ecosystem. So we have to look at it in the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you for that quick and informative presentation. Our next speaker is Dr. Turney Kumara. Dr. Turney is a General Manager at the Marine Environmental Protection Authority, which aims to prevent, control and manage pollution of Sri Lanka's marine environment. He was also the head of the Department of Oceanography and Marine Geology at the University of Dharshana, and he's now also a senior lecturer there. He's also actively engaged in marine and coastal ecological knowledge dissemination, management, research assignments, and consultancies for more than 19 years. 19. His areas of expertise include coral ecology, marine biodiversity, marine pollution, blue economy and coastal zone management, marine protected areas, and climate change. He will talk to us about marine pollution and government involvement in marine conservation.
Thank Yes, my topic is marine pollution and global environment, and you should expect that the picture I'm going to show is not white, but it's gloomy, it's not colorful, right? So, as Nishan mentioned, what we see here is on the tip of the iceberg. This is unknown and unseen, and nobody is actually trying. What is marine pollution? So, pollution is the interaction of anything with the marine environment by man, directly or indirectly. And again, that causes changes in the environment as irreversible as most of the time. At the same time, it causes some health influences to marine activities, environment to the quality of seawater, and various uses and reduction of energies. So that the pollution may be liquid or solid. Two sections, especially if you take some examples: fecal pollution, visual pollution. Enrichment with nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus, and again organic, toxic and heavy metal pollution, oil pollution, and thermal pollution. But at present, nobody is talking about sound pollution and light pollution in the ocean. Think about how many boats travel up and down in our coastal waters, how much sound is emitted, and same time the light pollution from the projects and from the shipping sector. Example, and the important thing is that most from marine pollution, about 90% of pollutants are land-based, 10% are ocean-based. Therefore, we all responsible for marine pollution, not pollution again the world scale. These are some examples. This is Trincomalee, this is Melissa, this is Melissa again, this is Melissa how they transport, bring all the pollutants to the ocean, not liquid, and again solid. And Melissa. And this is Udayana, this is Gurnaga Japna, this is Mena, this is Nigambo, this is Vallavatta, this is Crow Islands, right? So the beaches here are very much clean because we clean it. These are the beaches untouched beaches without cleaning. This is Crow Islands again, this is Gurnaga, this is Goal, Udayana Harbour, and Devaragoda Hiznala. And again, the Devaragoda, the oil pollution, the Covita, and Mutual Harbour is a harbour is not just water, is growth of everything like these are the shopping bags are floating in harbour waters. This Kudavan Harbour, the plastic islands are floating within the harbour. This Melissa, and again in North Column, you know that the two untreated sewage are pumped. And you can see how they emit those plumes to the ocean environments. And again, river pollution and river plumes bring everything to coastal waters. And again, the coastal waters are very much high in nutrient, and lots of pollutions are there. Whatever you use in inland areas, in your kitchen, in your home, ultimately end up in the ocean waters, right? So not only that, we receive some transboundary pollutants from neighboring countries, from India, Bangladesh, Burma, Thailand, even Malaysia, Indonesia. Future pollutants from the east coast or from those countries that we receive through the ocean currents. Because of that, annually, world we emit about 8 million metric tons of pollutants to the sea, especially plastic and polythene. In Sri Lanka, we release about 0.64 million metric tons of solid waste to the sea as a single country, right? And those are the figures liquid pollution. Because of that, we ranked number 5 in 2015 from a report based published by Gina Jenbeck from University of Georgia, and for that she based on reports published by World Bank that's published in 2010. And we know that to control pollution, the solution is not the problem, the reduction is not the solution, but to do some corrective measures and do some preventive measures. Corrective measures are but costly and time taking. Preventive measures requires attitudinal changes, and it will take some more time. We took some actions nationally, internationally, and locally. Internationally, we took some actions like we joined the research program under UN in 2017, and we became we co-sponsored for 5 junior resolutions in last year, but out of that 5, 2 are mainly on marine pollutants. Strengthening global governance on marine plastic, litter and microplastic, just one. Second one is about solid waste management. We co-sponsored for this resolutions at last year. And again, in region wise, we became a member we are a member of SAs, and we are a member of SACEP. And Sri Lanka was we supported to develop a management financial program for SAs region, and we are proposing to declare 14, but for the moment we are trying to declare 10 blue flag beaches around the country. And again, locally, and as a policy-wise, we develop a national document on policy strategy and national action plan for maritime environment protection in Sri Lanka. And we develop again a national strategy for pollution prevention from fisheries sector. And in addition to that, we are amending our act to address more land-based pollution issues. And we declared the International Coastal Cleanup Day to National Coastal Cleanup Week. And for that, we use 3rd Saturday, 4th Saturday of each September as National Coastal Cleanup Week. And we became number 9 for the participation in 2016 because we had about 70,000 people participate during that week to clean our coast around the country. 17, we became number 9, 16 from the world ranking. 18, we became number 13 from the participation, right? Right. And we banned swimming bags, carry bags, and sheets nationally. And we banned all the polythene usage in decorations. And we banned polythene and plastic burning in open spaces. And at the moment, we are discussing to ban 6 single-use plastics in next 4 months' time. There are some more to come. I discussed at the discussion level. We are also beach cleanups. I know that beach cleanup is not a solution for pollution, but this is what we have to do at the moment to show some progress in the ground. And even with international agencies, local agencies, we do current beach cleanup activities. We are establishing beach the straits across canals. These from this internationally, but this informally. This is goal. Soon in 2 weeks time they will come to Vellavattan canal to catch all the plastic from Vellavattan. And we establish marine parks. So we help local poor people to maintain the beach parks, and we pay about 6,000 rupees per month. And so far we have 120 beach parks, 120 families, 120 kilometers managed by NIPA. Our next task is to improve that into 200 beach parks by 2020. These are the parks examples. Kiri Beach and Pesari, and these are the poor families. We pay 6,000 rupees per month for them. And we establish these breeding belts, and again establishing small areas for recreation purposes for the local people. And we promote urban forest patches, and we promote these sort of small river parks to keep everything clean and tidy around the coast. And again, we promote this sort of providing beach cleaning machines. One is in Nikambu, one is in Kodi for the moment, and the smaller machines for the smaller beaches. And for the awareness, we promote beach cleanup, recycled items, and again to use those reusable bags, and go for 6R. Then we promote 7R to doctor, bury, all the degradable items from household level. And we promote linear economy to circular economy. We can discuss this later when the technical issues are there. And that's all. That's what the government is doing. This very few, but we can discuss everything at the discussions of the forum. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Our next speaker is Bhagya Wickramasinghe. Bhagya is the head of legal at EFL. She is an attorney at law and has worked as a lecturer in law too. She obtained her LLB from the University of Colombo as well as her LLM. And she has also obtained an LLM in environmental law and policy from the University College of London. Her areas of interest include sustainable development and law of the sea. This evening she will talk to us about policy options for coast conservation and development projects.
Thank you, Dharshana. I'll quickly go over the policy options that are available in ensuring cost conservation when we engage in development projects. In Sri Lanka, one of the key things that the development sector and economic policies are focusing on is coastal related development, because with the war, post-war development planning focuses a lot on the coastal areas, because that is one of the most impacted communities. The coastal community is one of the most of economic activities and lack of economic progression. It is also one of the most poverty-stricken communities within the country. And because of this, the coastal management plan and all the management economic planning has paid a lot of attention towards developing coastal related development projects such as energy projects, tourism and other building developments. So in this context, it is very important for us to look at what are the policy options available to ensure that coastal the coastal areas are conserved while ensuring that also development activities happen at the rate that we want it to happen. Basically the importance of development activities in the coastal zone, we have to recognize that as environmentalists that development has to happen, and especially because the coastal zone is at home for 32% of the population of Sri Lanka, and therefore most of the economic activities are concentrated around that area as well. So the key issues regarding the coastal resources and the development activities and planning and legal implementation is that we have the Coastal Zone Act, CCD, the Coastal Conservation Department is established by the Act, but however there are certain areas and certain issues that are coming up in the post-war context that are not yet addressed within the plan's Coastal Zone Management Plan or the Act. So the basic setup, the legal background for coastal conservation is within the Coastal Conservation Act No. 67 of 1981 as amended. However, in this Act, it recognizes that when you go for development activities, you have to establish and go for an EIA process, Environmental Impact Assessment process. But as we know, the National Environment Act also has a provision that says whenever there is a development activity within the country, you have to go for an EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment process. So there are two sort of parallel regimes for environmental impact assessments in the country right now. Where when there's development activity within the coastal zone, you go for a EIA under the Coast Conservation Act, and when it is within the inlet of the country, we go for an EIA as required by the National Environment Plan. However, when it comes to certain development activities that are sort of cross-cutting within the inland and the coastal areas, the development permits and the environmental impact assessments are not done as required by the the Coast Conservation Act or the National Environment Act. So sometimes it becomes, the parallel regimes become a loophole for the people, project proponents and project activists to sort of bypass the regulations that are there to ensure that there is two regimes that are there to ensure the protection of both very specific ecosystems in the country. So it is also necessary to recognize that our EIA process established by the National Environment Act or the Coast Conservation Act does not have adequate regimes to ensure that there is proper monitoring and evaluation. So there is only the requirement of conducting an EIA and submitting a report, and public sometimes, if they are aware, they will submit the public comments. But other than that, there is no requirement for monitoring and evaluation and constant review of the process. So to see whether the project proponent actually does adhere to the mitigation measures that is suggested by the EIA reviews. So those are some of the issues recognized within the coast conservation and development planning, especially in this context of us focusing more on the coast-based development. Also, the Coastal Zone Management Plan 2018, I wanted to cite this plan particularly because this is a plan that recognizes the coastal zones and that identifies the relevant zones, and also in this plan they have focused, as I mentioned earlier, to build Sri Lanka as an economic hub, maritime hub, tourist hub and also an energy hub. So these are very fancy idealistic words. I don't know how far we are going to go in these things, but if we are to establish energy hubs, we absolutely have to recognize that Sri Lanka is an island nation. We are doubly vulnerable to climate change. So are we actually taking actions to ensure that in pursuing these goals within the plans that the government has come up with, have we addressed climate change related needs? So I want to pose this question: are these conflicting goals, or can we sort of align these goals in order to make sure that development of community and stabilizing the economy of the community can align with coast conservation as well? So one of the main things that I want to suggest is that we look at coast conservation, marine conservation as science-based, research-based options, and yes, it is very much based on scientific research. But also they recognize that policy analysis and policy review, constant policy review is one of the key things to identify and move towards coastal conservation, like prudent coastal conservation and timely coastal conservation. And in this sense, it is absolutely necessary to have a bottom-up approach. In Sri Lanka, most of the activities we look towards top-down approaches where the government would initiate and the government would do the conservation for us. But the government and the laws, acts, policies, plans and everything has to make sure that the community is engaged more and more in conservation activities. Finally, I wanted to just put this idea forth regarding EIAs and environmental impact assessments. It is since climate change is impacting us and we feel the effects of climate change all the time, and since being an island nation, we are facing the sea level rise, it is necessary for us to also consider the climate change impact assessments in addition to the EIA assessments in development projects. So climate change impact assessments would ensure that we calculate and we sort of research on the climate impacts, the impacts of climate change, what is happening, get stakeholders involved, get their input regarding the climate change and its impacts, and how would the development activity exceed or exacerbate the climate change impacts within those areas that the development activities are happening. So that is one of the main policy options that I suggested, and institutional cooperation and engaging community more in policy planning. So this is a basic overview of some of the key policy options that we can discuss. If you have any questions, we can maybe discuss in the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bhagya. Next up is Dr. Sevvandi Jayakody. Dr. Sevvandi is a senior lecturer at the University of Bayamba. She's a director at EFL and a passionate environmentalist who has worked in Sri Lanka to stand up for what is right. Her main areas of expertise include mangrove conservation. She has developed a management plan for Sri Lanka's largest declared marine protected area, the Bhagya Sanctuary, and she recently led the team that prepared the 6th national report for the Convention on Biological Diversity of Sri Lanka. Tonight she will talk to us about sustainable fisheries and its impact on marine conservation.
Thank you very much. So having seen Nishan's beautiful pictures about fish and Jenny's pictures about marine pollution, I really want to eat fish. But yet, yes, we live in an island and we love fish. Now the problem is I never wanted to talk negatively. Didn't want to talk about unsustainable fisheries. I just wanted to tell that sustainable fisheries is still possible. All we need is some changes, the way we think and the way we act. Right. So let's look at the context of this problem, fisheries and the ocean. The thing that we have to always remember is ocean is an open source. So that it belongs to me, it belongs to everyone, it belongs to every country. So fishermen don't recognize it as something that belongs to them. Okay? And there's also no ownership to be harvested, so that you have a tuna that can be caught in India, it can be caught in Sri Lanka, no one knows where it is harvested. We also have to remember that most of the fisheries, most of the fish that we take are migratory, therefore it's very, very difficult to work out who's catching what, and also to work out the hunters of it. So it's the problem is that we really don't have catch data most of the time to work out what's happening to our fisheries until the stock collapses. And very importantly, fish is food and nutrition and security. So that's the context in brief. And with that context, let's look at the challenge. Why the word unsustainable is always attached with fisheries? It's because of these challenges. Every country, every seafaring nation talks about profit maximization. Everyone, every government wants to talk about how many votes that they can give, how much of subsidies that can be provided. So it's all about the profit maximization. And also, very importantly, everywhere in the world, not just the developing countries, but even in the developed countries, it's subsidy-driven. Subsidized fuel, subsidized boats, you talk about it, so it's always a profitable job. And very importantly, unlike in any other matter, here there is no transboundary dialogue, and when it comes to fisheries transboundary dialogue, the dialogues are always murky. So every country tend to take decisions about their own fisheries as if it is something that belongs to them. Of course, EEZ belongs to every country, but yet fishers don't recognize EEZ. And very sadly, the last point that I want to talk about is a very important challenge. When few people talk about it, is the lack of market chain wisdom. Fisherman that goes to sea to catch fish has no idea where the fish would end up. So he has also no idea how much fish to be brought in. So the lack of understanding at each point of the chain is also the reason why we are having unsustainable fisheries. So we know the context, we know the challenge. So the outcome of this context and the challenge is this stock collapse. We already have several fisheries collapsed going towards the tipping point, and in a moment like that, I'm talking about how we can make fisheries sustainable, because it's still possible, we can do it. But the thing is that the answers that have been brought forward so far to make fisheries sustainable are equally challenging. As I've indicated here, some of the solutions are not viable, and some of the solutions are not accepted by the fisher community. For an example, economically efficient conservation efforts, they are not always resource equity. There's no guarantee that everyone would be benefited through an effort like that. Then we also have the problem of most of the time the long-term management options and the objectives creates unequal distribution of profits, so that it's so difficult to go to a fisherman and ask him to think about his children and his children's children, when the fisherman himself says that that's the only way for his living. Therefore, you do have the challenge of coming up with solutions, but also have the challenge of delivering the solutions. So that going from several solutions like closed seasons, size and state restrictions, I don't want to read the list. These are the kind of set of options that we've used so far. As the picture shows here, what I've indicated as the size and state restrictions, for lobsters we have a restriction that gravid females cannot be caught. But is it implemented? No, sadly. Many lobsters are caught gravid, and at the processing factory it's a matter of using a scrub and scrubbing off the eggs. So that's where the reality is. So the problem of making fisheries sustainable is that answers do not serve the needs of everyone in the chain. So that you have to be very crafty and you have to be very careful. And at the same time, we have to also remember, this is FPO 2018 data, as you can see very clearly, I don't think this is working, but as you can see very clearly, 2016 data, you can see the trend. This is where you have the capture production, that is our sort of fish caught from the sea and other natural aquatic systems. You can see it's tapering off. We are more or less there now. So, and the system is not doing well. But we have what you see here in blue is the most interesting thing. So you can see how aquaculture is more or less taking over the vacuum of lack of fish in the sea. What's the impact of it? Well, that's the rogue one, the new rogue one. So the capture-based and the culture-based aquaculture is becoming quite unsustainable. I'm very sure that the audience here is aware about the difference between capture-based and culture-based, otherwise we'll talk about it. But the problem is fisheries, the traditional fisheries, seafaring fisheries, the impact was for the sea, the ocean. Whereas the capture-based and the culture-based aquaculture, the impact is also for the land as well as for the aquatic system. So that we do have a situation where the unsustainability is not just coming from the traditional fisheries, but also coming from aquaculture now. Well, can't we address them? Well, we can. So it's a matter of working now how you want to create the ecosystem well-being and the human well-being. Well, everything relies on a good governance. Why don't we have the good governance? Because the problem is that some elements of good governance has been ignored. So what I've suggested here, what we can do are some of the things that we can implement in order to bring back the sustainability that we all need. So informed decision making, this is a very important thing, informed decision making, basically because when you tell the reality to fishermen, they tend to comply with you. We'll share some good stories later on. So community engagement is very important. Gender mainstreaming, why? Fisherman is a man that always lives in the sea. He has no idea about financial management. Whereas the woman of the household is very, very important in maintaining the income. Whereas we have a big problem that fisheries is always considered as a male-dominant livelihood, whereas it is not. So gender mainstreaming and capacitating the female in the household is also very, very important. And through that we can bring a lot of sustainability, because you don't want to go to sea every day if you are alone. What else? Yes, private sector development and value chain management, this is quite important, because we have the fishermen bringing the fish, but then you have the private sector coming into the processing up to the point of export. So it's very, very important to close the gap between the communication, so that so that we can create some level of sustainability along the value chain. And I would also like to emphasize the fact that safety and sea enhancement is another very important thing to create sustainability. So what I want to tell you is that it's not impossible, it's possible. The problem is that we have not thought about, we have not gone out of the box and thought about the sort of like ideas, innovative ideas that can be used to make fisheries sustainable. And I must tell you, we are not late, we can do it. All we need is this kind of dialogue, awareness, and also making sure that we work with the fishing community more closely and understand them better. So I want to close my small introduction to sustainable fisheries with this picture which I took from internet. Remember, every time that we throw away bycatch, that's the biodiversity, ocean biodiversity. So basically, ocean biodiversity, the bycatch is ocean biodiversity. So fisheries is unsustainable not just because of the fish we catch, but also the fish we discard. It's not just the fish, it's all the other vertebrates and invertebrates. Yet we talk only about making fisheries sustainable, but what we really need is to make sure that what we do in the ocean becomes sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sevvandi. Next up is Dharshana Jayawardena. He is a professional diver and pioneering solo underwater explorer in Sri Lanka. He's the author of Ghosts of the Deep, Diving the Shipwrecks of Sri Lanka, and has identified the origins of several mystery wrecks in Sri Lanka and discovered its first underwater cave system. Dharshana will talk to us about shipwreck and associated tourism in conserving marine ecosystems.
Okay, so you saw most of the slides I had to present, so I can be very short. I have one more. Okay, so we went back to the top. Okay, so there's a shipwreck in Bali, in a town called Tulambe. And the interesting thing is there's a whole town of about 3,000 people who are surviving because of this shipwreck. Right? There are people who carry tanks, provide boats, provide food, provide accommodation, transportation. So it's a huge opportunity for that town because of the shipwreck. And that's it for the shipwreck in Bali. So how about the Sri Lanka potential? Does Sri Lanka have the same potential when it comes to shipwrecks? The shipwreck that's off Colombo, again the same shipwreck. Just remember this ship. I will get back to it in a moment, giving you some bad news, unfortunately. That's a World War II shipwreck off the coast of Hermes, World War I off the coast of Colombo. Okay, so what do you think? This is just a small sample of shipwrecks. Do you think Sri Lanka has potential for shipwreck tourism? I see some nods. Yeah, and also we have about 50 diveable wrecks. So what do we do with this? How do we manage this resource? The top conservation issues that face shipwrecks, in my opinion, are these. The topmost is dynamite fishing, illegal salvage for metal, spearfishing. In other countries, spearfishing is a sustainable form of fishing because people free dive or breathhold dive fish. But in Sri Lanka, they use scuba and just sit and just shoot all the fish and cause localized extinction. So that's a problem. Commercial anchoring, I asked you to remember a ship which I showed you before. That whole part, that beautiful coral, everything's gone now because some big ship has come and dropped anchor on that, and that whole part is destroyed. And it's happening quite regularly. And for me, of course, finally, the ghost is also a problem for shipwrecks. So the conventional approach, which I hear lots of ideas from various people, government, private sector, is let's do something like this. Let's have the government go and promote shipwreck diving overseas. Let's restrict these areas. Let's ask people to get permission. Let's charge them a fee. Let's establish very high standard for operators. And let's get the Coast Guard and the Navy to protect the shipwrecks. Right? For me, these are bad ideas, I think. And I think the realistic way forward is first and foremost the government to focus on providing infrastructure. Provide infrastructure for coastal tourism, marinas, access roads, waste management, parking, etc. etc. Secondly, you need to give a chance for the market to grow. If you want to develop a resource and make money out of it, you can't put restrictions before it grows. If you have a tree in your garden, you're not going to prune it before it's grown and it's becoming a problem, right? You need to let it grow and then you kind of promote it. So we need to, at some point, charge fees for shipwrecks, but not until the industry is grown. And we definitely should go into a position where people have to go and get permission before they go and dive shipwreck. It's going to just stop the industry. And also you have to make it easy for dive operators to start, but you have to regulate the numbers in a given area. Because I always say that we have to avoid yalas. Yala has become kind of a global example of bad tourism management. And we can't really have a repetition of that in an unsustainable way in all areas. So I think we also need to go for the quality of the tourist experience and not numbers. And I think you also said that we always talk about numbers, high profit margins. That's not really going to work because at the end of the day, it's going to die at some point, right? And in Philippines, in Thailand, they actually shut down certain places because there was over tourism. Destroy the whole place. Boracay, in Maya Beach. So we have to go for high margin low numbers and not low margin high numbers. And by that I also mean that we have to attract what's called lifestyle divers. And lifestyle divers are divers who actually, like myself and Nishan, whose whole life revolves around diving. So if we go on vacations, we go on a diving vacation. We go, if we meet friends, we are meeting diving friends, right? So yeah, pretty sad lives. But thing is, people like that, they are willing to spend a bit more than a normal tourist who maybe go to Sigiriya, go to Yala, and then on the way sees the ocean and say, okay, maybe I'll go for a dive. Right? So you have to attract that type of money. And I strongly believe that we have to engage the community for protecting these resources. Because the people who make money out of this are the only people who will be interested in protecting this. And the thing with putting restriction is, it's actually beneficial for the bad guys. Because the restrictions keep all the good guys away. And during that time, all the bad guys go and they dynamite, they pillage the shipwreck, they take the mental out, so restrictions are not really good. You have to let the community protect it. And then what the government can do, the authorities can do is when the community reports issues, swiftly act on it and crack down on it and sort it out. And then participative policy making. Obviously, when you are making policies, people who don't know about the industry should be making it. They should be engaged with the stakeholders. So, I will finish with a success story. Like Bali, we actually have a shipwreck which is encouraging lifestyle divers, the Ravis. And the reason I say is there are people who come to Sri Lanka just to dive this shipwreck. They come for 2 weeks, they get off the airport, they straight away travel to Batikno, spend 2 weeks doing 2 dives a day, and then they go back. They are not interested in looking at anything else, right? And the operator, and there's actually only one operator there, that person is making quite a big amount of money from it. So we have a success story, and then we can repeat it with a good quality experience for the diving tourists, but with less impact on the environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker today is Commander Ravi Weerapperuma. He is the head of Marine Conservation of Sri Lanka's Navy, and he will talk to us about Sri Lanka's Navy contribution in reducing marine pollution and recycling marine waste in an innovative approach.
And go on. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we at the Sri Lanka Navy do very basics for conserving marine environment. Every day we collect plastic on the beach and separate it from what we collect on the day, 10 bottles, and this is what we get from eco-single private limited, grant from PET. And all the contaminated plastics are reduced, and these are the final product from this bottle. And all the waste or the contaminated plastics, we have projected into our vial, and this is what we do with the contaminated plastic, except the PVC. And we import 1,500 metric tons of PET material to the country, but we are successfully collecting only about 600 metric tons. About 900 metric tons, we don't know where it is going. So at the same time, we do mangrove replanting with the help of Sudesha and what are the other solutions? Ecology. And at the moment, we have 117,000 plants, surviving plants successfully. The success rate is some areas 80%, some 0, but we are not bothered, we are continuing. And just want to highlight one factor. If I have to ask you all, what is the largest ocean predator in the world? There are 1,000 who know the answer to this. So we have been very successful in changing the food habits of one species. So we have completed now. That's the cattle industry. All the fish caught in the sea, grounded in pellets, sent for the cattle industry. So we have to, if we are successful in changing the food habits of another species, we can do wonders in this world. Thank you.
speakers. We would now like to move on to the Q&A session where the audience can ask any question you would like to ask the speakers related to the topics they discussed tonight. I'd like to ask you all to come forward and like to sit. Any questions, anyone?
Thank you very much to all the panelists. It's very interesting interactions and all. We can't have it all, but finally we have things to show you. And again, this question was about our visitor, the agency, so we are looking in the roaming around country and but about any agency or any responsible agency not rescued home, not doing anything, we can't actually, how can we assure that it seems like how it ends up with? So do you have any suggestions or something workable action for saving this elephant seal? So I would like what your opinion and what we are to trust with.
So, in short, I think its fate is sealed. Basically, here's the context of it, in my personal opinion, that while it is kind of interesting for us and while you try to provide the animal with the best chances of survival, it is essentially an animal that has strayed out of its normal geographic zone. This kind of thing does happen. Things from cooler waters to warmer waters, from warmer waters to cooler waters. Usually the mortality rate is quite high, the chances of survival are low. I'm not an expert on elephant seals, so I can't comment too much on both the biology and ecology of them. But there is not much you can do. It's not like we can escort it back to the cooler southern ocean, where we have no facility for this. But in the wider context, I think it's a small thing because as a species, it's not. You have to start looking at it from a less emotional point to a practical point. I mean, this is me talking as a biologist and not a emotional person. It's one seal of a population of animals that is not threatened under the IUCN Red List. It is of least concern. Whereas I am quite amazed at how much resources have been already spent in terms of putting, patrolling and protecting this elephant seal from potential harassment. I wish we could put that same effort every day to stop things like bottom set netting and spearfishing, for example. Just in Colombo where the seal is, if you walk down the beach towards the hill, like every morning you will see people taking spear guns out, coming back with spear fish commercially harvested, illegal. Every day they're going out with bottom set nets which are coming back with pieces of coral stuck on them. Contrary to popular opinion, there are coral reefs of Colombo. So these are all illegal activities, but we don't put the same effort to do that because the standard answer is we don't have the resources. But now we have, I don't know how many people day and night standing guard over the sea. So now the point is, I'm not saying that we should not care about the sea. This is not the situation, but I think there isn't much, in my opinion, that we could do other than letting it be. Nature has an amazing way of balancing itself. Sometimes some things live, sometimes some things die.
Thank you, but can't we get any support from other countries? They have very developed technologies and all, they have vessels and all, so
I think other than short of lifting it off to Antarctica, they don't know what they can do because we don't have or moving it to a secure facility, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think the effort and the cost it would incur is probably spent better for other things. It is a sad thing. The seal has to find its way back. Like I said, its fate is sealed pretty much after it drifted here.
if I add something to that, we talk about the tsunami. It's just another event, right? It's not a big thing. So the same like see, it came by its own, and it will be like this, and it will grow and stays. This is not the scene of us. We should not decide what to do with the scene. See, decide what to do on staying here or dying or whatever. Let the scene be free, don't disturb it, don't feed it, don't try to do some medicine on it, and let it be very free and without disturbing. That's how we can feed the scene instead of
Most interesting part of this is that the seal has spent the most amount of time in Sri Lanka on Colombo. So while we talk about these animals being harassed by people, it has chosen to sit by the rail track where trains go every day. When we do have quite a coastline, so sometimes these animals act in strange ways. Maybe it wants to come into the city.
I have a question. I think Nishandra will be most important. Okay, so we talked about ocean pollution, and there is the liquid and there is the solid. So for solid, we can just pick it up and take it back to land and process whatever. But when it comes to like liquid waste like sewage, what can be done to clean up? Can we do anything to clean up the ocean, or is just there nothing we can do? And if it can happen naturally, what is the process of breakdown?
There is a problem with the personal law.
Yeah, regarding liquid waste, for the moment, we don't have solid solution also at the moment. But countries like Japan, they treat about 97% of sewage they treat, only 3% is they get it to the ocean, the environment. But in Sri Lanka, the vice versa.
Actually, I'm talking about the sewage waste that's already in the ocean.
Sorry?
The sewage waste that's already in the
Already in the ocean.
Yeah.
So then if you add sewage to the ocean, there's nowhere to be treated. So I think because of our Sri Lanka's the situation of the Indian Ocean, we expect that the currents will dilute it. Because we are not like the right countries like Sweden, we have a shelter with small seas like Baltic Sea. But in Sri Lanka, we are able to expose the whole Indian Ocean. So we expect that the currents will take most of the pollutants away from our coast, but in the south west monsoon, it pushed everything back to the Colombo shore. So from Colombo to until Kalutara, so from our records, we receive about more than 1,000 times higher equivalents. It means completely sewage polluted waters, right? So so there's no solution for the moment. But when we talk about municipal council and the neighboring countries and they have programs, there also projects are coming. So it will take some more time, at least 2 decades, because we have to connect all the households to the sewage monitoring system, to have all the piping cut open roads and connect everything to one single system. They have programs, but it will multi-year projects, but it will take some more time. So the issue is Sri Lanka has not taken enough actions at the real time. So we have to wait.
Our sewage all goes to Colombo sewage all goes straight to the sea.
Yeah, there are 2 canals. One is from Belava, one is from Mochua. I have
Does it go out deep into the sea?
2 kilometers away from 2 kilometers. And that's Rose Village, and it's well known to most of the swimming aqueducts in the area.
Yeah, the water of Colombo is very nice.
Can I say something? About 4 years ago, I had a study done by W.S. Atkins about the sewage of Sri Lanka, when I was looking at what businesses to get involved in. And I found it really interesting that we just pumped this raw sewage out into the ocean. Not long after that, I was in Stockholm, and in Stockholm they have buses, right, which run entirely on the pool of the residents of Stockholm. So everybody shits every day, and then you have a bus with free transportation. And I'm like looking at this thinking, why don't we just have this technology? Because rather than connecting everybody to the system, there's only, I think, 200,000 families or areas that is connected to that system that over that ocean. So you can, here in Sri Lanka, so you can utilize that to drive at least some of the buses that we have. And then the second thing is not to engage in a sewage system. I mean, Bill Gates has just invented a toilet where you don't need water and you don't need any flushing, you don't have to be connected to anything, and you end up with a result that you can fertilize your soil. So I think we need to think we can leapfrog everybody and actually do something productive for this country where you don't have to connect everybody to the sewage system, which is a very archaic way of running disposal. Something to think about.
Actually, in Sri Lanka, there's not many houses that are actually connected to central sewage, even in Colombo. Probably know this from people. So it's most of them are septic tanks, and then it's sledged, then the sludge is pumped out, and then God knows what happens to that. It's probably dumped somewhere else. But in terms of the eco toilet or the composting toilet, Sri Lanka, they have tried it. There is a problem with that. And that will take a while for attitudinal change, because we come from what you would describe as a wet toilet culture, not a dry toilet culture. This is a water-based toilet culture, not a paper-based toilet culture. This was a challenge faced after the tsunami. I know personally where many donors, I know the American Red Cross tried a lot where they established these composting toilets, but you can't have water into it. So it became a big problem. People just started to use these toilets to store firewood or whatever and stuff, but not use it because it's such a cultural change that it was. I'm not saying that it has to be like that forever, but that is one of the obstacles that they have faced with that. Where they tried, they have introduced this in parts of the country, but it's not had much success primarily because of that. People actually just tell you, I don't want to use the toilet because I can't wash myself.
This question is for Mr. Shankar. So I know seated conservation is really important given that they are typically on the brink of extinction because of ocean plastic and climate change. And we have about 5 species of sea turtle coming to our coast to lay eggs. But then the hatcheries don't seem to be delivering the perfect conservation methods. I think it's a bit flawed and also more focused towards profit. And there's also this illegality aspect because the fauna and flora ordinance just have a section where it says it's illegal to process turtle eggs and sea turtles. So what's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear they are illegal. It's a matter of what action you want to take, but this has been discussed for a long time and no one seems to want to move on it. And I don't know whether EFL has been working with the department on the legal aspect of this. Yeah, there's no question it's illegal. Sea turtles obviously are faced with a lot of issues. One of them being nest disturbance. The other thing is bycatch fisheries. For all of the marine species in Sri Lanka, even the wrecks because of the ghost nets that Dharshana talked about, what Dr. Sevvandi talked about in terms of unsustainable fisheries. Some of the heavy net use in Sri Lanka is one of the biggest causes, particularly some of the nets which are already legal. A good example of somewhat more sustainable fishery. I don't think there's a perfectly sustainable fishery anywhere at this point, but Maldives has definitely much more sustainable fishery than us. And they banned all net fishing. You cannot use a net in the Maldives, whereas here we have subsidies to give people nets. So that results in a loss of marine mammals, loss of thousands of dolphins, turtles, fish are lost in. So these are huge problems as we expand our fisheries fleet and expand our tuna catches and stuff. So again, we have a push towards increasing kind of production. Again, this goes back to what I said about exploitative mentality, because for the Department of Fisheries, for the Ministry of Fisheries, it is important to increase production. Essentially, ministers, this is not to take political sides or point fingers, but there are kind of evaluation is on how much production is done and how much your kind of benchmark of success as the Minister of Fisheries would be to say that during your tenure, fisheries production has doubled or gone up by 20%. And that's kind of what the public also likes to hear. Sadly, maybe not all of us here, but millions of people outside this room. So that is where it has to change. But again, the sea turtle thing, yeah, definitely it's illegal. legally I think they should all be shut down, but then there's also things that they could be done in a better way. And they could be used for education and conservation. In some of these cases, in situ protection of nest is difficult. That is the best thing. But in the southwest coast, for example, in a heavily populated coastline, it's very difficult to do that. So maybe in situ is not so ideal, but only option here. The issue is how you raise the young. I mean, we do this head starting where we keep the baby turtles in a tank for a week, 2 weeks, and then they release. That's the time they use up all their energy to get to a point that they don't feed. So now we release a weak turtle at a certain point in its life. We also release them in the daytime sometimes. They release small numbers. We are meeting all the systems that our nature has put in place for tourists. So you can have this where you can have tourists pay something into it, which is fine. As long as you follow protocol. But having that guidelines and enforcing that would be an issue. Maybe some of me can say a bit more about the legal aspects. Matter of enforcement.
Thank you very much for the presenters. This is probably for maybe Bhagya. Now, you said something quite interesting. Now, most of us are focused on EIA, but not so much with the coast conservation. But now, where is the port city? I would like to ask a few questions about it. Now, port city, does it come either in EIA or coast conservation? Which is the thing. And then what about the general ports? Now, even in all this, now we see it's totally kind of, even there's a pollution even in our ocean, like what we see. And who controls these? Where does it come? Since the port is a state organization, we don't know whether there is any kind of control by either of these authorities. Then coming back onto the North Shore coal, where does it stand? Whether it is coast conservation or because what you mentioned quite made me think. And so these are the questions about the legality and about the CPI and all that. Maybe the other question is Dr. Sevvandi. You mentioned that the aquaculture is also polluting. How does it pollute? Does it pollute the sea or the coast? I mean, if you could just elaborate a little on that. Thank you.
About the energy projects and the EIA and the EIA puts under the coast conservation act, so it's parallel. So basically, like if you have a development activity happening within the coastal zone recognized under the coastal zone management plan, if it is within that area, then you have to go for an EIA or a development permit from the coast conservation department in order to engage in any building or energy project. Power plants are included in that. So if the building happens within the coastal zone, then it has to go for a coastal, the development permit under the Coast Conservation Act as well. So you brought up North Shore is a problematic area because it falls within the Northwestern Province, and Northwestern Province has its own separate statute. And that statute governs the EIA process regarding the development activities within that province. So it sort of has become its own unit in terms of EIA process and environmental clearance process, whereas in the rest of the country it is the National Environment Act that applies, and it is the EIA process within the National Environment Act. So there's a conflict because the North Shore power plant, we are not aware whether they have obtained the development permit under the Coast Conservation Act from the Coast Conservation Department. What we know, what we are aware of is that they have the permit and clearance from the Northwestern Province under the regulations. Under the regulations and the Northwestern Province Environment Statute, not under the National Environment Act, not through the Central Environment Authority. So that is one of the major issues that we have in Sri Lanka, and that's why I mentioned power projects as well. The Coast Conservation Department keeps referring to power projects and the issues that are related to power projects being installed within the coastal areas, and the fact that you have to get development permits for that. So that is the requirement for development permits within the coastal conservation areas. Regarding the port city, it's a separate project that happens, and there was an EIA process and an initial environment impact SEA process as well. It was 2015, there was a report and there was public comments called from that. But it is really complicated. EFL has sent comments on the initial environment impact assessment that was done, but due to the different political involvements and the different units involvement and the fact that it is a lot of money and the development interests, I think has outweighed the environmental concerns here. But there was an environment impact assessment that has been carried out and it is available online. There was public comments call for that as well. So up to that, regulatory requirements have been met. Is all I can say. Whether mitigatory measures are met and whether monitoring and review is happening, whether they are actually implementing the mitigation measures is information that I also am not aware of.
Now that is just setting up the whole city, but after setting it up, another environmental problem is coming up. What about the sewage, all these things, now no one has thought about it. And who's handling that? I mean, we have to be aware of it now.
Initially, it is the Ministry of Megapolis Development that has set up everything, and I haven't seen much of coastal conservation departments involved regarding the port city project. But the Ministry of Megapolis Development is heading the project, and their concern is megapolis development and urban development and not exactly cost conservation or environmental clearance. So it is a matter of policy priorities and governmental priorities. So that's where I can comment on that, because legally there is nothing I can say regarding the ministerial, because it's the ministry's decision regarding policy, right? So it's not a legal thing exactly. It's the government's priorities regarding development projects, and how they implement the law is basically up to each ministry, how they function.
We wanted to know how aquaculture is affecting the ocean. Now the last slide that I showed, the bycatch itself is a very good indication about how fisheries in fish is affecting the ocean. For an example, if you take shrimp aquaculture, the feed that comes in, it's totally bycatch. So we had a time when bycatch was discarded, but now you have fleets going out to sea, targeting bycatch, small fish, because it's easy to grind, so that it can be converted into fish feed and be sent to other countries that is aquaculture. That's one impact. So bycatch is a very big impact. Then the other thing is, most of the time, coastal aquaculture in the intertidal and the supratidal areas, there is effluent, extracting all of that straight into the sea. And the other indirect impact is aquaculture always tend to look for species that have the fastest growth, that can be cultured with less problems, disease resistance, for an example. So that we have a situation where globally we have species being taken from one ocean to the other in the name of aquaculture. One very good example at the moment in Sri Lanka is that traditionally we had been cultured in Penaeus monodon, which is a species that was found in Sri Lanka, in the Indian shrimp. But now we have already grown with lots of resistance violating the rules. A species that lives in Pacific Ocean, Penaeus vanani, which is not even found in the Indian Ocean. So that's why I said aquaculture is the wrong one, and one that we have to watch out for, because its impacts are not just for the ocean but also for the land.
Okay, great insights, I think, on the problems we have a lot to solve in the country. Just want to know whether you have continued support from the tech startup sector, private entities, because I know there's a lot of individuals who are very interested, especially when it comes to a very broad topic like plastic pollution. There's startups like Zero Trash, and Poruki, which recently won many awards. So what kind of involvement can can be done through the startup sector? Because I know maybe a note to the organizers, it's great to have panel like this to disseminate information, but also if we have problems like maybe global problems, these startups can actually ideate based on that rather than coming up with solutions which are very cursory. Because we can identify the priorities, because with the professionals we can identify exactly what's the top 5, top 10, and maybe based on that we can create hackathons. I think the Jayawardena did like a prototyping session similar to that, I think 2 months ago. Similar to that, I think it's an idea. We can maybe further develop on this so that we can actually look at viable solutions and get these startups as private entities involved in for some of the major problems like plastic pollution. Because I know zero trash, for instance, they're handling a huge amount of metric tons per day. Just one individual zero trash Hasaka Pandaka, just one individual in his backyard cleaning up plastic and sorting it out. So I think there's a lot of interested individuals. We just need to like synergize, get all the stakeholders involved. I don't know what kind of involvement do you currently support these kind of startups or private entities? What kind of synergy is currently happening?
I think the whole idea of the EFL coming up with this forum is to make sure that we reach out, so that we bring in the experts, so that we have ideas and priorities, and then you can think of, okay, let's look at why things are moving forward and what can be done. And I think this is exactly what we want, and as you mentioned, we have to go to the next level rather than step. Because talking about trash, talking about pollution, there are ideas, and certain ideas are already happening by this approach to that. Maybe there's a lot more to be done. Because NEPA, there are attempts at a movement, but to be supported by everyone. It's not just not putting the plastic out, but also thinking about novel ideas. I totally agree with you for that.
Yeah, actually this morning I had a meeting with Dharma. They came to me, and Sri Lanka and I had another meeting with George. They came to me. Actually, what I asked them to give us the annual action plan for the program and merge it into paper plans and make it a one single, national action plan to control this environmental program. Right? And remains with the same with us. And Kumar Sangaka and Harris they came this afternoon before this meeting, they came to me, right? So now what we are doing is, now we have ideas. So we let them do it through their groups, right? And we have one organization called Good Team. They are receiving our programs to their communities. And we have just established one program called 100 Weeks Marine Conservation. Each week we have some programs happening somewhere in the country. We should have awareness program or something. So what we do is we take all especially the private sector, because we can't sit and do it. We need the support. And they are very much willing, they have the capacity to funding more or whatever. So we take them and initiate in the national government and make it viral on the market and take all the enthusiast people like you to one single forum and make it happen. And again we promote that CSR, community social responsibility. But now we go into another step called individual social responsibility. Individual what we can do from household level, from yourself, from myself, what we can do to control marine pollution or control pollution. So Kalinka, we by ourselves and throw it out and at household level to reduce the carbon emission rate, right? Those sort of things we are promoting. Like 5, 6 are those are things we are doing. So what we NEPA, our main target is to look at the elephant in the room, but to now myself to catch all hit all the low hanging fruits first, then to grab the bigger problem like right? So go to that later, but still start with small things first and go fast. For that also people can support us without any burden for them, without any money involved. Just their education is needed. So those are the things we are now exploring. So what we now NEPA is preparing is we invite people to come with us, not only in the right because 80% are coming from the land base. So if we can do something for ourselves, like small tiny thing, that will ultimately go for a low distance. So that's the area we are focusing on, and for that private sector is now with us. We have kept all doors open. You can come to us and make it as a very viable practical solution.
I want to bring up something that may have remained below the radar, particularly with respect to rural children. As murder, nobody talks about it. It's not there in the list of polluters that is listed in the EIA or whatever it is. And there are absolutely no protection against mercury in rural children. In addition to also there are no protection for other things also. At present they are running completely illegally without valid EPA. But it is a very dangerous substance, as you know. We calculate over, say 2011, at least half a ton of mercury would have gone to the sea. How much more went up? Just chimney and then the rest of it we will know. And that is the potential. It is never discussed, it's never listed in any of the documentation. And although you said that Northwestern Environmental Authority gave the EIA, but then coastal conservation also has a role. This is what is affecting the sea. Not only what is being released from coal that is spilled from the conveyor, but also collecting the water, cooling waters and back. Nobody talks about it. That's a huge problem. And also now they are trying to put up another coal plant also there, calling it clean coal. There are no such animals. I don't know. Is there anything that can be done on this one? Is there any provision in the
regarding the mercury or the expansion of regarding mercury, yes, there are issues regarding the EIA hasn't mentioned that, and I'm not a technical expert regarding the scientific aspects of it. But when it comes to coast conservation, and in the Coast Conservation Act it says if there is a development activity or a development activity, so development activities are defined in the regulation which lists power plants. So within the development activities that list power plants, the Coast Conservation Act says if it is happening in the coastal zone, and the coastal zone includes the certain areas of the sea as well. It doesn't exactly it's not the coastal belt only. So if it affects the sea, then there are instances where you have to get a development permit from the DG of the Coast Conservation Department, which has not been, there's no record of that having been obtained. And therefore that might be the reason why these issues have not come up to the fore, because the coast conservation related and marine pollution related issues have not really cropped up, because there was no clear licensing and permitting processes that were adhered to. If they applied for the processes, only these issues would have come up, and because that was never done, and because the Northwestern Province provided the clearance and the sort of permit, they went ahead with the project. And therefore the EIA has referred to most of the issues regarding the inland aspects, but sort of has not adhered and addressed most of the issues regarding marine pollution. Especially there was one report that I was going through that referred to the fact that even the marine pollution and the hot water that comes from the dispensers, that was like that they say that there's no research to support the fact that there is any marine pollution happening from that. So there are issues like that which sort of puts these scientific issues and research-based issues apart from the not adhering to the proper legal processes that are already there though. These permitting requirements are there in the CE, National Environment Act, and the Coast Conservation Act and the regulations. But local can.
My question is it necessary for the developer to go and ask for coast conservation, or is it their obligation of the coast conservation have to see what is that? You see, the fact that there's that Northwestern provincial EA does not mean that coast is under there. Coast conservation under the entire country is there. So they have obligation to look at it. But this has never been looked at and never brought up. You know, they try to pretend there is no such thing called merger. Whenever I brought this up at various things, nobody talks about it. It's not listed anywhere in this protection. And we go on putting it out. But now, today, this moment.
The issue regarding development activities is that there is no direct duty imposed on the coast conservation department, because these things they read very in a very literal sense, and they read it to the black letter of the law. So when you go through that, it says the development activity has to get permit from the Director General of Coast Conservation Department. So if that is not obtained, there's no requirement for the coast conservation. There's nothing in the law to say that the coast conservation department has to go and oversee development projects. So that lacuna is but based on the objectives of the Act, if you look at the Act holistically, and the whole purpose of the Act is coastal conservation, and therefore that is why we have set up the department, and it is the department's duty to go and check, and look into these matters. But since there's no specific provision stating that, there's a technicality that they can sort of, I'm saying this in a very legalistic point of view.
No, what my question is, it's not a case of they are going to go in and supervising what they are doing, but they must have an obligation to say what is the impact of that on the road. So that's why that's not required them to ask that question.
Yeah, the issue is that I can't tell something openly, and there are things I can't tell openly because I'm at home and I'm government hand, right? Issue is that if you do something in Sri Lanka, you have to take a permission. Yes. Some development activity. The course of knowledge is coast conservation. And in the case of Port City, in the case of North they have applied for a permit. So they applied, they got the permit. What is in the application form is unknown. So some powers, some decisions came from somewhere, and they had to issue the permit as available. Right? Even the OCD issue, the initial EIA was about very few pages, 10-20 pages, and it's very substantial, not substantial. Therefore, then after this past 2 years time, they really redo it, right? So what now what we have to do is now done in our church. What we have to do is to rectify the issues as far as possible, because we can't now close it. We are contributing some service to the national power grid. Is again beyond the jurisdiction of the government officers, but some decision should come from top, but the final decision should be. So rules are there, the systems are there, they followed it, but what is in that documents are the water levels and the temperatures. In the case of temperature, our CEA it says that you can release water up to 40 degrees to the sea. It's too much. They are releasing at 38. So they are not illegal in that case. So now we are going to put down ambient +2 and -2. That should be the normal rate. So our water temperature is about 29 degrees or 30. It should be 32 or 28. Our law says 40 maximum. So when you release water at 39 degrees, you are not violating anything. So there are some lapses also in the legal setup, but still regarding this all these issues, some decisions came from somewhere and really overturned all the. I can't tell anything openly, but that's what happened.
Thank you for all your questions. If you would like to ask more questions, we have refreshments afterwards, so you can ask the speakers any other question you would have. For now, we'd like to give a token of appreciation by the Nation's Trust Bank to all our speakers. Thank you. This brings us to the closure of our event. I would like to thank you all, especially the speakers, for the very informative presentations and eye-opening discussions, and the audience as well for your participation. I would like to thank Nations Trust Bank for the sponsorship of the event, Pulse Media, who is our online media partner, as well as HAT for partnering up and being the facilitator of this event. And last but not least, I would like to thank the EFL team for your help. I'd like to warmly welcome you for all our future events. You can stay updated with us through our social media pages, and please enjoy some refreshments in the hall. Thank you very much and have a good evening.